Class 8, let's start today's class. In today's class, we are going to revise those chapters which are included in your annual examination. So we are going to have a brief of those 4 chapters which are coming in your annual examination, and we'll revise some important topics also. So let's start today's class. Children, there are 4 chapters which are included in your annual examination. Um, in history, there are 2 chapters included. Chapter number 6, The Great Uprising of 1857, and chapter number 7, Socio-Religious Reforms. Clear? Now, from civics, 2 chapters are included in your annual examination, and for that examination, from civics, there are 2 chapters. 1C, that is the organs of the Indian government, the judiciary, and the another chapter is the United Nations. So only these 4 chapters are coming in your final term or final exams or annual examination, right? So just go through these 4 chapters. You're supposed to do thorough study of all the 4 chapters, and you're supposed to make your own question answer, and you need to do short question answer, long question answer are also coming for your that final exam, and true and false, correct the false statements, and fill in the blanks, define the following terms, give the meaning of, and give the full form of the abbreviation. So various types of questions are there. So for this, you need to do a thorough reading of all the chapters, and revision is must. So more you revise the chapter, more you'll come to know. Right, children? So let's start the revision of 6th and 7th chapter, that is the Great Uprising of 1857 and the Social Religious Reforms. The Great Uprising of 1857. So this Great Uprising of 1857 was that war of independence in Indian history, where not only men but also the women and the children, they participated in this movement. So this was the first time in the Indian history the people of India, or the Indian people, they launched a mass movement, right? That is why it was also known by the Great Uprising of 1857, or the first war of independence. Now see, there are the several major causes of revolt of 1857. Political causes are there, social causes, economic causes, military causes were there. So in political causes, first cause was doctrine of lapse policy and annexation of Indian states. So doctrine of lapse means it was that policy which was adopted by Dalhousie, Lord Dalhousie, and according to this doctrine of lapse, if king is died without having his natural heir, natural son, then the king's kingdom would be automatically handed or automatically transferred to the British company. Right, so that was the doctrine of lapse. And Satara, Udaipur, Nagpur, these were the states which were affected by this doctrine of lapse, and Indian rulers disliked this policy. Second political cause was annexation of Indian states. So anyhow, Britishers, they wanted to occupy or annex Indian territories. So whether it's through doctrine of lapse or by giving the statement that the state was not managed properly. So several reasons they gave, several government versions they had given to annex, to occupy Indian states, Indian territories, right? So that was annexation of Indian states. Second cause is social causes. That is, number one is social reforms like abolition of sati. So, abolition of sati, many evil practices were there, like sati system, child marriage. So, these type of evil practices were abolished by the Britishers, and which the Indians thought that it was the interference of Britishers in the religious interference, we can say religious interference by the Britishers. So that was social reforms like abolition of sati. So that also it was the social cause which led to the revolt of 1857. Spread of Christianity. So to spread the Western culture, to spread the Christianity in India, Britishers, they introduced Western education, and in jails also they started preaching in English, and they started preaching, or they started the teachings of teaching Bibles in jails. So that was the attempt to spread Christianity in the in India. So that spread of Christianity and social reforms like abolition of sati became the social causes which led to the revolt of 1857. Now let's talk about economic causes. Many economic causes were there. Ruining of Indian industries and handicrafts. So Britishers, they did not promote the Indian industries and handicrafts, though they were very popular, very famous in England, but they did not encourage. They ruined the Indian industries and handicraft in India. Secondly, exploitation of natural resources and wealth. And exploitation means misuse of natural resources. India's wealth, India's natural resources were misused by the Britishers because they used India as a supplier of raw materials to England, right? So these were the economic causes. Now next is military causes. Low salaries to Indian soldiers. So Indian soldiers were not given proper salaries. They were low salaried paid soldiers, Indian soldiers, and the promotion was up to Subedar only. They were not given proper promotion also, right? Now next is no chance of any promotion. This I already discussed. Now these were the major causes of the revolt of 1857. Clear, children? Okay, now let's move to another chapter, that is sorry, the socio-religious reforms. Socio-religious reforms. So in this chapter, we read about the different socio-religious practices existed in Indian society during 19th century. And we also discussed about the importance of socio or reforms movements during 19th and 20th centuries, which spread the awareness about prevalent of social practices. And in this chapter, we also discussed about the efforts of the reformers to deal with the issues, various issues like caste system, child marriage, female infanticide, and Parda system, Sati Pratha, etc. As well as we also analyze the impact of the reform movement on the Indian society. And we also appreciated the role of social reformers. So social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Swami Vivekanand, they were the social reformers who really fought against the evil practices which really prevalent in Indian society, right? So we also came to know about the dark period of Indian Indian history. So we know the after 19th century, there came the uprising, revival, rebirth of the Indian society, which came to be known as Indian Renaissance. So Indian Renaissance came into later half of the 19th century against the background of a dark period in the first half of the century in Indian history. So in this chapter we went through the various social reformers and their contributions in on and the impacts of those movements, social reformers movements, on Indian society. Right, children? So this we have already done, and what is important in this chapter is the role of press is very, very important. Right? So the role of press means printing press, that became the powerful medium for mass awakening. So during the 19th century, the educated Indians who had studied in England or other universities realized that the press could play a great role in creating public opinion and bringing about a change in the minds of our Indian people. So it's given in a fact file. This printing press played a very great role or a powerful medium for mass awakening in India, because that time no means of communications were there like mobiles or cell phones or pagers or computers. That time only one powerful medium was there, that was press, printing press, through which the leaders or the people came in contact with each other, and it played a great role in creating public opinion and bringing about a change in the minds of Indian people. Right, children? So this is important, and you need to go through some other great reformers movements also, and different books written by them. Right, children? So let's move to civics chapter, that is chapter number 1C, the judiciary. Okay, children, this is your 1C chapter of civics, the organs of the Indian government, the judiciary. So in this chapter, we discuss the composition of Supreme Court and High Court. So composition means total strength of the judges of High Court and Supreme Court. And the qualifications also we have discussed, and appointment of judges of the Supreme Court and High Court. We also analyze and studied about the powers and the functions of the judges of Supreme Court and High Courts, and the concept of judicial review and court of record, which is very important, as well as we also studied about the writs with various examples. Right? So we know that the judiciary is what? It's a third organ of the Indian government. So all the courts at different levels, all the courts means your high courts, district courts, civil courts, criminal courts, other courts at different levels, all they put together, and that they make, which is known as judiciary, right? Together are called the judiciary. So we know that judiciary is very important organ of the Indian or the union government, right? So just see this picture here, the Supreme Court of India, the apex court of India. Apex means the highest court of India, which is situated at New Delhi, and total judges are 31. So this is the composition. This is composition of the Supreme Court. 31 judges are there, in which one is Chief Justice and 30 are other judges. Chief Justice name, current Chief Justice name is written there, and it was established in January 28, 1950. Appointment of judges are always done by the President. And term of office, a judge holds office till he attains the age of 65 years. This is for Supreme Court judges, right? For High Court judges, a judge holds office till he or she attains the age of 62 years. So there's a difference. in term of office of High Court judges and Supreme Court judges, right children? So in this, what is important? Qualifications of judges are important. So there's a slightly different in qualifications of High Court judges and Supreme Court judges. So just go through it. And what is important, this new words, impeachment. So impeachment is what? Impeachment is a formal process in which an official is accused of unlawful activity, outcome of which, depending on the country, may include the removal of that official from office as well as criminal or civil punishment. So impeachment is the process or the procedure through which the judges of a high court or a Supreme Court or the other courts are removed, right? So that procedure is known as impeachment. Now the single integrated judiciary is very important. This ray diagram is very important. See, the highest court is Supreme Court, which is given in this green block. Then lower to it there is high courts, and lower to high courts there are district courts, and lower district courts, we know there are three types of courts. Civil courts, which relates or which deals, civil court deals with the civil cases. Revenue courts, which deals with the collection of taxes and revenue, and criminal courts, which deal with the criminal cases or crimes, right? Now other than these topics, this appointment is very important. Appointment of a judges are done by the president, and other judges, chief justice is appointed by president, and other judges are appointed by the president, but with the consultation of chief justice. This is important here. Jurisdictions, powers and functions of the Supreme Court. This topic is important. What is original jurisdiction? What is appellate jurisdictions? Advisory, guardianship of the constitutions, guardian of fundamental rights, and Supreme Court acts as a court of record. So just go through these topics. These are very, very important. These are important because this chapter is very much these topics, and this chapter is very important, as this chapter is definitely going to help you in class 10th syllabus. This is included in class 10 syllabus also, right? So this is definitely going to help you a lot. Independence of judiciary, this topic is important. So why we need to keep this judiciary independently, or why by independence of judiciary we mean its independence from the control of executive and the legislatures. So many provisions are there. Number one is appointment of judges. Number two is security of tenure. Salaries are charged on the consolidated fund of India, because the judges are getting very handsome salaries. So they the salaries are charged on the consolidated fund of India and cannot therefore be voted upon the parliament, by the parliament. So there shall be no discussion with respect to the conduct to the discharge of any judge of high courts or Supreme Court. So punishment for the contempt of court. So genuine criticism of a judgment is allowed, but nothing to be done to lower the dignity of the court. So the court has the right to punish those person. Prohibition of practice after retirement. A retired judge of a Supreme Court cannot plead or cannot practice any case in any court of tribunal in India. Right, children? So latest updates is there. National Judicial Appointments Commissions. This is also important. The establishment of NJAC, that is a National Judicial Appointment Commissions, is under the process to appear and transfer the judges to the higher judiciary. Right, children? The High Court. This is important, High Court topic. And the composition, qualifications of the judges of the High Court and High Court judges, and the composition is important. and the powers of High Court, that is original jurisdictions and appellate jurisdictions, as well as writs, meaning of writs and different various writs. Name are given here: writ of habeas corpus, writs of mandamus, writ of prohibitions, writ of certiorari, and writ of quo warranto. These writs are very, very important, as these are issued by the High Courts or Supreme Court in various conditions, in various cases. Okay, let's talk about lesson number 2, civics. That is United Nations. So in this chapter, we came to know the aims and the principles of the United Nations, and we also studied the different organs. Mainly there are 6 organs of the United Nations, and we also discussed the composition of General Assembly, Security Council, and International Court of Justice. And we studied the functions of UN agencies like UNESCO, UNICEF, and WHO, and their logos also we have done. And we also appreciated the role and the services provided by UN agencies. So this is the logo of UN, that is United Nations. A brief is given there. Headquarters is in New York. Languages spoken there are 6 languages: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, Spanish. There are total 193 member states. Leader Antonio Guterres, and establishment date was of UN Charter, that was 26th June 1945, but it came into force on 24th October 1945, and the original members of United Nations was 51, and India was one of the original members of the United Nations. You need to revise this objectives of the United Nations. Various objectives are there, and organs of the UNO. As through this diagram we come to know the various organs of the UNO. UN logos here. These are the 6 organs, important organs of the UNO. So the first one is General Assembly, which acts as the Parliament, World Parliament, right? Then we have Security Council, then Economic and Social Council, International Court of Justice, Trusteeship Council, and Secretariat. So these are the 6 main organs of the United Nations, right? And this is important: veto power. It's a negative vote or no vote given by one of the permanent members of the Security Council. So this new word, this veto power, is very, very important. Now just go through the topic: Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, veto power, and the 5 big permanent members. 5 big nations name are important here. Veto power is important. International Court of Justice, just go through it and just go through the functions of International Court of Justice. Its headquarter, you need to know the headquarter, where it is situated, and just go through the different agencies, specialized agencies of the UNO. The main agencies were UNESCO. The abbreviation of UNESCO is United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. The date of establishment, and at least 4 functions of each agency, right? Now WHO, this is also important: World Health Organization, the date of establishment, and the functions. At least 4 functions you need to learn. UNICEF logo is this. It's here on the screen. Now just go through, as I told you, the UNICEF, the full form of UNICEF is United Nations Children's Fund. United Nations Children's Fund. I repeat, United Nations Children's Fund. So just cut international and emergency, because international emergency is not is not the correct. United Nations Children's Fund is the correct full form of UNICEF, abbreviation of UNICEF, right? So date of establishment is important. Just go through the functions of UNICEF, right, children? And the last topic, achievements of the UNO. So this is also important. Just go through it. And the last topic is failures of the United Nations organization. Just go through this topic also. Clear, children? Okay. That's all for the day, children. Hope you will revise all the chapters thoroughly, and you'll give your 100% in the annual examination. Right, children? So all the very best. Thank you.